this. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. I have a dope ass person on right now. This is a really good friend of mine. It's really funny because we met back in the day when we were in the New Age community, and I was channeling a lot of things that had to do with Anubis. So that's what we had in common. She used to crack jokes and laugh and like make fun of me because I had this really deep voice, but I know it was all in good fun. And later down the line, we ended up coming back in contact with each other, and we realized, oh shit, I recognize you from Google Hangouts because we were always there. But now these days, we have our very own platforms. She runs her own podcast. She's very successful when it comes to her business. She knows how to fully execute creating 3D digital art, especially when it comes down to extraterrestrial incarnations. Now, can you tell us a little bit about that and just introduce yourself?
Well, first of all, I wanted to thank you so much for having me here. I am super excited to be a part of your own channel as well, and your own creations. I'm very excited to be here. A bit nervous because it's been a while since I've been the one being interviewed. So I guess I'll get started with who I am and what I do. So for anybody out there who doesn't know me, I am Zion Zeta. I am a author, 3D artist, web designer, mentor, and also host of the Spiritual Alien podcast. It's a podcast where I talk about aliens, conspiracies, the shadow military, as well as spirituality, of course, and self-development topics. And the reason how I got into 3D art, it's mainly because I wanted to depict my own contacts for a second book, which I will be releasing later this year, which is Connecting the Stars Part 2, Illustrations of a Contactee. But of course, I did not have the skills back in the day, like in 2015 or 16 when the book was released. And I was inspired by somebody to start getting into 3D art myself. And what do you know? I started to explore with these programs, and very quickly I started to develop quite complex images of beings that I would see. Eventually, people wanted to start commissioning me, and I felt awkward about it because I didn't want to charge because, well, I had a friend who did that already. She was already charging, and I felt like I was trying to steal clients from her. So I felt really awkward about it. But people eventually kept insisting, and I wanted also to help my family in some way. So I figured, why not? So I started to charge and do art, and it's always an interesting experience because even though you're always doing the same thing, sitting in front of the computer for 8 hours for about a week, there's always a different result, a different energy with a different message. Sometimes there are technical issues with the softwares or the computer or in my bedroom, and it's usually because of that, because I am connecting with a higher vibration of one or multiple beings and trying to depict them into some form of physical way in digital form. So there's been some interesting experiences, but in a nutshell, I love doing 3D art because I feel that I can express what I see finally and show the world who my contacts are and how they look like, and also be able to help people as well to see their own contacts again and have that memory somewhere where they can go back to it and connect with them during meditation, which I
Awesome.
always suggest to everybody to do.
That's awesome. So they can gaze at the images and they can meditate on that image because it'll be ingrained in their
That
mind.
is, yes, that is always what I tell them to do after they book a session with me and after the portrait has been finalized. I always remind them to meditate with a portrait because they always have downloads. And I always stop my clients from telling me their first impressions before I send them my meditation notes with the messages. This way, they can confirm things they already perceived before I come in with the notes, because I don't like to be biased during my work. And I always ask them to wait and to keep their own impressions to themselves before I come to them with my notes. This is also a sneaky way for me to push them to play with their intuition and tune into their intuition and develop it along the way as well.
That's awesome. I think that's pretty awesome because it gives them that kick in the butt to get them to become sovereign. And I'm always pushing that, so I can definitely appreciate something like that. Um, when did you know that things were different for you? When did you know that you were gifted psychically? As a child, what was the most profound experience that made you realize things are not what they seem?
As a child, I used to have a lot of dreams involving spirits where they would be spirits that used to live in the homes where I would be in with my family. And I never liked these dreams because they always wanted to show me how they died. And it
Oh,
was always very traumatic. One time I was living in an apartment on the third floor when I was 5. And one time I had a dream with a Victorian couple. And the woman was very upset with me for some reason. And she was asking me if I wanted to know how she died. So I told her, yes, I want to know, and she took me to the balcony and she pushed me off of it. And that's when I woke up. So I knew as a kid that something was wrong with me because I could not explain why I had these dreams and other people didn't. And I would also have very recurrent dreams of being in cemeteries at night where I would be there like with my hands like this, like invoking the force, but not really, to push the spirits away. I'm not sure which types of spirits, but they were very negative because I would always end up being attacked by them in these
wow.
cemeteries in the dream state. So I always knew that something was wrong or weird or off, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it or explain what was going on. But I knew that something was up.
Whoa. I think that's pretty crazy because I remember my when I realized that things were different for me too. I used to get chased by spiders a lot in my dreams through these pyramid network systems. Of course, someone who would have these ties to Anubis would definitely be having experiences like that. But this is before I realized that Anubis had been around me all that time. Okay. I would have these dreams every night where I'd be walking in these big structures, definitely pyramids that had a lot of different kind of technology inside of them. And when I would walk around, it was so vast. It seemed like these things were just ginormous. And it seemed as if on the inside of them, it was a lot bigger in perspective than being on the outside. So when I would walk around in these things, there would be these giant spider beings that were just partly humanoid as well, but they were huge tarantulas. And they would just chase me through all of these different tunnels. I knew a lot of shortcuts. I knew a lot of places to go. I would drop down, go through tunnels, go through doorways. I knew all the secret traps, the areas to go, and they would chase me around these places. They would always chase me through these places. It got to the point where, I started having these dreams so much that it ended up kind of bleeding into reality. And after it started bleeding into reality, I started having contact with extraterrestrials. I started to see different extraterrestrials within my living room, around my family members, especially when I would be sleeping at night. When I would be laying down in bed, I would just see these creatures standing over me and watching me and feeling the energies that they had. A lot of them were very positive, but it was very weird, especially for someone who's 2 years old. 2 and 3 years old. That's very strange. We're not going to you don't know how to react to things like that. And I was kind of I was kind of, pushed into the corner because I didn't have anyone who really understood that part of myself. So it made me really strive for keeping my mouth shut. And I wanted to consume as much information and get as much knowledge on that subject as possible. So I started becoming highly obsessed with paranormal shows. Paranormal TV shows. I started watching all of those shows, started kind of ingesting so much of that information. And then I found out that there are actually people that are psychic mediums. One day I was watching a haunting and a psychic medium came in to the person's home, and they were definitely showing signs of abilities that I was showing signs of, especially with highly, highly acute clairvoyant ability. So I was very much so intrigued. And it also made me really sad because I was, I was literally the only one that was open and talking about these things. My brothers weren't even really talking about these things with me. They had experiences, but even to this day, they still don't really talk about these things with me openly, if that makes sense. So it really was something that made me feel like a loner until I got a little older and I decided that I wanted to really dedicate my life to this path. So then after that, that's when I started really, really getting into it. I had my awakening. I had a lot of different experiences that made me who I am today. And that's how that's the reason why I made this channel in the first place, to talk about my experiences, to let people know that they're not alone when it comes down to this stuff, to, to let it be known that there are all sorts of different spirits, especially off-worlders, that come here and want to communicate with people, that have ties to people's ancestral trees. And that's what I'm trying to introduce to people. That's what I'm trying to get people to recognize. But it was a really, really hard and lonely path for sure. And it still is, because not everyone is going to understand what you do. Not everyone is going to understand your perspective or even want to hear you out. So it's just so awesome to have people like you, especially as friends, to be able to kind of confirm a lot of the things that I've been through as well, especially when it comes down to dealing with the shadow military, dealing with, going into these installments that the military have throughout the United States, to understand that these things actually do exist and that they are trying to hide these things. So it's a really big fucking deal when you have someone who actually is experiencing that kind of stuff as well. I might be getting sidetracked, but I just get so excited.
But it's true. And that is why I wrote the first book on the first place, because everything started when I was 16 years old. And I did not have anybody to talk about, oh, I got abducted by aliens and I don't know what they did to me, but I don't remember. All I know is falling off the bed to run away, and I blacked out as soon as I fell off the bed. And what do you know? 3 hours pass and I'm back in my bed as if nothing happened. And how am I going to say that to my family? Like,
Mm-hmm.
they knew something was weird with me, but I was very uncomfortable telling them, even though they saw a UFO in that summer of 2009.
Oh,
And my
wow.
abduction happened later on in November of 2009.
Huh.
So, how am I going to tell them, oh, I got abducted by aliens and it had to do with that UFO you guys saw? That I didn't, but I saw a silhouette outside my window from a third floor. I wasn't going to tell my family that I saw a silhouette outside a window living on a third floor while they were outside, when I
Mm-hmm.
did not know they were seeing a UFO at the same time. So that's what got me interested in the whole alien phenomena in the first place, because we were always open minded. But eventually, you grow up, you forget about it, you get distracted with other things. In my case, it was video games and boobs. I did
Of
not care.
course.
You
Yeah.
know?
Well,
So,
of course. I mean, that's how it is. That's what happens. But you also want to like drown. You want to utilize those to kind of drown yourself out because you don't feel like there's anyone who can relate. So I can
yeah.
definitely agree with you. But you also, the cool thing about video games was it was just this outlet that allowed you to connect with people who were very similar to yourself too. Because you ended up in these games like Destiny. You end up on games like there's so
Sonic,
many different games.
Warframe.
Exactly.
In my
Exactly.
case, it was Sonic back in the day, back when the
Mm-hmm.
games were cool. And I had a bunch of people who were also in the same thing. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how I would spend my time all day,
Mm-hmm.
chatting with people about the same thing and wasting my time not really learning anything new, because I was
Mm-hmm.
always homeschooled. So I had a lot of free time. So I wasn't really being productive as a teenager because I was too busy gaming and drowning myself in emo music.
Well,
So,
me too. Me too. Like I was playing a lot of video games too. I was playing a ton. I definitely had played Warframe. I liked that game. I liked, I'm drawing a blank right now, but I used to play a bunch of games like Conquer's Bad Fur Day. I used to play Donkey Kong. I used to play Super
oh my
Mario,
gosh, Donkey
Smash
Kong,
Bros.
Mario, what
Exactly.
else? Yeah, back in the day, there were a lot of games like Spyro as well, Mortal
Resident
Kombat.
Resident Evil,
Yeah.
exactly. There, Silent Hill, even. I love horror games, and that's how I used to that's how I used to escape. But that's also how I used to piece things together to understand, like, wow, they have these things in the games, but these are things that I experience in my life that made me feel comfortable. That made me feel like it was a way that I could express myself and kind of have something that relates to me, even though it's not really anyone. But that's just what happens when you're a kid, you know? And especially if you don't have any friends, because no one wanted to listen to the shit that I had to say. I was that kid that always made everybody pissed off because I had them question their God. I made them question their reality. I made them question everything that they do. Like, I made them question their everyday mundane lives. For myself, I was always asking questions. I wanted to know everything because everything just didn't seem right, especially when it came to the religious structure. But I don't want to get into that because that was a very long topic when we were talking about it in our interview together the last time. But just to give it some context though, and it's just been fucking crazy because this stuff is unbelievable. What I wanted to ask is, what's your most profound experience with extraterrestrial contact? What was your most profound experience?
Wow. Well, the first one I can tell you because there's several, but the highlight of the past 10 years is realizing that one entire race of ETs is neither good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this will sound like dumb for some people out there or like it should be common sense. Unfortunately, in the UFO community, there is anything but common sense. And I do see a lot of people judging, for example, the reptilian looking beings as a whole, that they're all evil and heartless and will eat the virgins and kill the babies or whatever they say. And oh, the Pleiadians, which are the Nordics, which are blonde with blue eyes, all of them are good and positive and kind, and none of them will harm you. And it's
But
like
they're highly manipulative though.
they
So
are. That has been my experience with them. And that's how I knew that the UFO community and the New Age are full of crap because they base their judgment on appearances. When I have received the most eye-opening, um, I don't know, experiences or stories by Draconians or Mantids or Greys. And it was a Draconian himself who opened my eyes in regards to their own race, that they were not all evil like I thought because I got fed that thought by other people.
mm-hmm.
And it was something really difficult to deprogram from because I was so used to it based on what other people would tell me that when one of them confronted me about it, it just distorted everything and shattered that illusion that I had around me. And that's when I started to question people, even from the new age, and starting to back off from everything, but they all started to consider me like, oh, she is an infiltrated Illuminati agent. She's a reptilian undercover. Whatever, and she's here to destroy us and whatever. People can be a little bit crazy, so it's very important that everybody out there has a lot of discernment because there are a lot of deceptive, manipulative people who want to start their own cult.
Mm-hmm.
And not
It's
that a
very true.
cult is wrong, depending on the type of cult, but there are people out there who are not exactly mentally stable to be given life advice, health advice, mental advice when they don't have the resources or teaching to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And I fell into the trap of many people for several years that I had a hard time climbing out of because
Yeah.
the gaslighting and the manipulation and the narcissism and the projections is so prominent in the new age and UFO community that if you are naive or innocent or you've never been exposed to it, it's quite easy to fall into their trap.
Yes, it
There
is.
is a reason why a lot of people discourage discernment in the new age community. Usually, and I'm sure you probably heard this one before, like, oh, you should always follow your intuition. Your intuition never lies. Then how come you ended up, for example, let's say Becca or Karen or something? How come Karen ended up with a narcissist whom she thought was her twin flame? Because she did not discern, she did not analyze that he was a manipulative person.
Hmm.
She did not analyze that he was taking advantage of her, you know, and you have to be really careful when people tell you follow your intuition alone.
Hmm.
Any being will tell you, in my case, the Draconians, to have a balance between
Yes,
intuition and logic. That's what they first told me when I was defensive against them
me
for
too.
being Dracos.
Hmm.
And that's when I started to question everything and all the illusions started to break away. And I started to see the bullshit for what it truly was. And that's how I just got rid of everybody. I
Hmm.
tend to be a loner myself, so I'm used to being alone. But you tend to sometimes surround yourself with people to not feel alone,
Hmm.
even if they are toxic.
That's very
And
true.
and unfortunately, you will have to leave that circle as well.
Hmm.
Because if it's not benefiting you, the universe and your guides and your gods and anything and everything will do all in their power to get you out of it so that you can step into your power, raise your vibration, and be of service and be who you came here to be.
Hmm. My experience that really had me open my eyes to a lot of things and not be so naive as well. I was very defensive as well. Not only that, but I was also very analytical. So when I was approached, it's definitely my higher self. It's most definitely my higher self. That is exactly who it was. He approached me and he came forward through like this rainbow, like a rainbow portal, and a lot of emanations that have to do with the Draconians, especially Alpha Draconians, have to do with rainbow structures and rainbow energies. They also have reflective technology, and I had been learning about that as well. So I was very on the fence about him coming forward through this rainbow portal. So he's in my room. He approaches me, and he's basically saying that I need to make sure that I'm protecting myself when I'm traveling to the other worlds. Because he introduced me to the concept of the nine worlds. At first, I didn't know what that was, but then I pieced it together and I realized that it was the nine worlds of Norse mythology, and it's the nine Norse worlds that house a lot of the energies that Draconians utilize often for their magic, for their ability to survive, for their ability to rule. And when he came forward to me, he told me about he was telling me about watching my back, making sure that I'm safe, but also letting me know that I was now a target to the empire because I had been going places that are forbidden for humans to be entering into. So it kind of struck me as odd, you know. But then what happened next? That's what changed my life forever, because he went forward and decided to he decided to give me a gift after I calmed down. Okay, and he ended up touching my third eye, and when he touched my third eye, it's like my head had this huge rapid expansion, and I was able to speak several different non-human dialects. Even though I say this a lot, this is my most profound experience because I was introduced to that ability to utilize non-human dialects for healing purposes, but also for interdimensional contact. That's also how I became a lot closer to Anubis, but that's also how I connected to those individuals that were aligned to the Anu. So there was a lot that ended up playing out that gave me connections to people that helped me a ton to give me that ability to understand myself even more. But it made me ask even more questions because it opened up this huge box of fractals of myself that I really just did not understand, kind of still to this day, I don't feel like I understand it because I'm still trying to piece together the breakdown and translations of these languages. And I speak five different ones. So it's like when I speak these different ones, they definitely take me into different altered states of consciousness. Not only that, but they bring forward beings that I'm not too familiar with, or I feel like I'm not familiar with, you know? At least I feel that way. So it's still something that's new to me, but it's very much so eye-opening, and that's what made me really start taking this stuff a lot more serious. Because after that, I started getting training. I started to get the ability to understand this stuff and what my contact was, and really what a lot of what was going on in my life. This led up to me coming in contact with the Mantids because I used to walk around and just sing in different languages, and I would just sing while I was going to work. I would look at the trees. I would just run. I would just walk around outside while I was waiting for the bus to go to work, and I would start to hear these frequencies that were very different than anything that I had experienced before. And that's when the Mantids had approached me. And when they approached me, they started to kind of tune me into their tune me into their frequency because I couldn't understand what they were saying at first. Then they were able to talk to me telepathically, like they tuned in my radio channel so that I could understand what they're saying and that it wasn't just noise, because it was white noise at first and it was squeaks and clicks and things like that, and it was really overwhelming. But the second time that I ended up coming back in contact with them, they came back to do some work, gave me access to a lot of different things, which makes me want to kind of go back. Now that I talk about it, I would like to find a way to connect with them more because I know that they can help me with my healing capabilities. They are also some of the best um, resources. They also have, well, I would say they're some of the best memory technicians when it comes down to kind of rewiring your subconscious and your conscious mind and allowing you to go back and forth from left and right brain. They definitely can allow you to understand how to travel off world, how to protect yourself. Not only that, but they teach some really good methods of astral shapeshifting, which I had learned from them, which was pretty cool. But my time with them was very short lived after they gave me my activations. And now I feel like I really would like to get back in contact with them. Do you know how I'd be able to go about doing that? I really have no clue because everything that I have tried hadn't worked.
Something I have never shared before with anybody, not even in the podcast, is the power of sound. And this can be interpreted in various ways. You might get the idea of a singing bowl or something like that. This could work for you, considering that the mantids are mostly known to be healers. They do healing in different ways, but one of the ways that I see them using is the power of sound. And for some reason, I see the color blue, which doesn't surprise me because the color blue has to do with the throat chakra. So singing or music can help to initiate that connection with them. It also, another crazy suggestion I might add is looking for music that you personally link with them. And here is why. I don't remember right now the title of the song or even the artist, but there is certain types of electronic music that has a very deep drops or bass in the background that when you wear headphones it makes your ears tremble due to how hoarse the music is, I would say, like how husky the sounds are.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not talking about vocals that are featured in the music, but pretty much instrumental futuristic music, I would say, that has like all these different pitches, like highs and lows. Usually the mantids are low pitches. So music with deep sounds that are, electronically based can help you also to connect to the mantid collective. And the reason why I say this is because I have always been sensitive to sound. My hearing developed more than usual. And whenever I listen to music, I can tell if the vibration behind music is clean or not. I
Mhm.
can also tell if the music itself feels like it was channeled from beyond or not. And typically, these type of musics that are electronic based tend to have a lot of mantid energy and Zeta Grey energy as well in them.
Okay.
So I tend to use those types of music to connect with either one.
Okay.
But
So,
in a nutshell,
mhm.
sound. Working with sound can help you to connect to the mantids.
Okay. So I have a question. What can you tell me about your personal experience and how you feel? Kind of like your full-on perspective from the mind of Zion that has to do with the subject of the Greys, the Zeta Greys. What do you feel? Like, how do you feel about them? What are your experiences with them?
Oh my god. So, um, it's been a 10-year journey of unraveling traumas and deprogramming from these traumas with them. Because after that UFO sighting that my family had in mid 2009, and then my abduction in late 2009, I always had fears and panic towards them because I figured, oh my gosh, like they're gonna harm me. They already harmed me. Like, what am I saying? Like the damage is already done. But eventually, I have come to find that not all the grays are evil. And it comes back to the intergalactic racism that is ingrained in the New Age community and the UFO community, where people think that because a being looks intimidating and scary and ugly, that they are automatically evil with an agenda.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
and this also comes to, I don't want to get into this other can of worms, but if there are already racist people, which there are in the New Age community, they are going to start linking their own racism beliefs, racist beliefs that they have within themselves towards other humans. They will translate that into the ETs as well and
Hmm.
start being judgmental towards them just based on appearance.
Hmm.
Because I bet that none of these people ever had an experience where they had a teaching by a great or a mantid or even a reptilian, because otherwise they wouldn't be so persistent on ruining the reputation of a race that it's like billions probably of
Hmm.
beings within that race.
Hmm.
So when it comes to the grace, I do want to say though that we will we will always feel a little bit of fear towards them, especially if you're not used to their appearance. It can be quite a shock to come across one in a dream. But I do want to say be open. And I know this is not an easy task, but try to be open and also open minded towards them. If you have respect towards them, if they are good, if they are benevolent, they will not harm you. And if they do harm you, do know that there are also humans who cause harm. So this is not like, oh, humans are evil because they are influenced by the reptilian overlords in the castles from the UK or from the government in America. It's not that. Anyone can be from either side. It just depends on who you come across. So I would suggest that you always use some sort of protection so that you can filter them out. And if you come across one of them that is not exactly a benevolent one with good intentions, do know that you're only seeing 1% of a race
Hmm.
without counting how many other variations within that race there are out there.
Hmm. So I have a question when it comes to protection because there have been a ton of people who've actually asked me about this. How does one protect themselves from the Greys? How does one find the ability to do that? Is there a way to actually do that?
In my experience, it can be tricky because it depends on your energy levels. So it all comes down to your vibration. If you're always constantly living in fear, you're always going to be exposed because your shields are non existent.
Hmm.
Why? Because when you raise the vibration, it's like you're racing a fence or you're racing this bubble to have a form, to come into form around you and protect you. And this reminds me of also the shadow military. How do you avoid that? It's all about not living in fear. And when you work on the mindset, because usually it's the mind that you have to work with so that
Hmm.
it doesn't work against you. It's
Hmm.
how you are able to then stop living in fear of, oh my God, I'm going to be abducted. Oh my God, the shadow military is going to kill me. If you're constantly in that state, that's what you're feeding and empowering. So they will automatically have power over you. If
Okay.
you go beyond that programming and raise above it, you will be in a much higher state. So, what's going to happen is you're not going to be a match to them. So, you're going to be invisible, so to speak, on their radar. So, you will be unreachable. And that's what happened to me as well several years ago after being in contact with the Draconians. They helped me to defend myself actually, to become invisible in the astral plane and to raise my vibration so that I was no longer a match for the black helicopters that were harassing me at the time. And I stopped seeing black helicopters for years. The only time I saw two black helicopters was in 2016 when I released my first book. The week of the release of the first book, I saw two black helicopters, but that was it. Until this year, which was like 3 years or four, kind of, that I saw another black helicopter, but it was because I had an Arcturian encounter. But
Mm.
again, it's all about keeping yourself in control, watching your emotions, watching your thoughts, and deprogramming from the fear.
Okay.
And this also includes not surrounding yourself with people who live in fear, because otherwise
Oh,
you're
yeah.
not really going to make any progress. You can be doing all that you want, but it also depends on the people that you surround yourself with who will drag you down with them.
No, that's very true. That's very fucking true. And after this, I want to ask you another question that is burning, that I've been burning to ask. Um, so I definitely agree with you on that because when I was first learning and I was first starting out to kind of understand a lot of this stuff, my guides would always tell me because I would deal with, like I told you before, I would deal with the shadow realm, but I would also deal with my guides. Okay. Which was very interesting at the same time because it would be literally 1 hour before my guides would come, and they would come at a certain time to talk to me. 1 hour before my guides would come, I'd be talking to five different random beings that would be trying to put me down, trying to talk mess to me, trying to make me feel like I'm not getting anywhere. But like being the person that I am, I'm pretty crazy, and that's just how I am. So I kind of got a kick out of it. I started taking notes on what they would say, how they would try to interact with me, what they would do, and I realized that I had telepathic ability. Not only that, but I realized that I was a clairvoyant because I could see them sometimes as well. They would come into my dreams. I also realized that all around I was a full-blown claircognizant because I could feel them too, and I could feel the difference between the vibration. And when my guides would come around after those guys weren't around, my guides would tell me the reason why they're coming is because you're aligning to their vibration. You're aligning to how their energy is. You're in fear currently. You're in defensive mode currently. You're trying to defend yourself from things that really just are not even there right now. You're feeling this anxiety because there are beings around you that are influencing that are keeping you there. So I literally had to work on my anger because that was a big thing that they used to try to bring forward was pissing me off with things that would happen to my family, minor setbacks, minor things that would happen, but they knew exactly what to do to piss me off. So they would do those things to piss me off and try to get me mad, and I would have to suck it up. I would have to keep myself with a poker face. I would have to keep myself very calm when they were around because when they were around, I actually would be able to establish that communication with them to get them to realize that I understand exactly what they were doing. And it wasn't until that day that I understood that they were doing, what they were doing, that they ended up leaving. It really wasn't until that day that they ended up leaving when I realized, okay, if I'm not getting upset by them trying to make me react, then I'm going to be fine. I was able to get further in contact with my guides as well. And then they also helped me to start to understand how to even tap into people's mindsets. Because after these thought forms left, I was able to really fully tap into people's minds. And that's the reason why I'm a telepathic psychic now, because I was able to stop a person that I was involved with from, even when she blocked me on everything. She blocked me on all social media platforms. She blocked me on literally everything. And the only thing that I had was WhatsApp. So I would literally telepathically send her messages, and then I would go onto WhatsApp and I would send a message with anger and energy to literally snap her out of the states that she would go into, because there would be spirits that would fucking possess her and fuck with her. So I would literally be able to get her back in that way. And it got to that point where I became so strong with that that it became just like second nature. And that's why I offer that service now. Someone asks me, how does this person feel about me? And I'll just put my hand up and connect to them, and I'll hear how that person feels. And I'll hear, I just feel like I want to be fucking left alone, or I feel like I really want my life to be great with this person, but I'm nervous and blah, 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 depending on what that person is feeling at the time. But I can hear their thoughts. And that's how I learned how to hear them. The question that I wanted to ask was, what can you tell us about the archons and the fact that people relate the archons to the Greys?
I am not too familiar with the archons. I know that I've been called one. That's for sure.
What?
Yes, believe it or not, there has been, well, just one person or maybe two who consider me to be an archon. I don't know why. And it could be because I am half blind. I don't see through my left eye. And so my left eye, it's different from the right one. And it could be that people have all these conspiracies. Oh, she must have like a host or something, like something is hosting her. It's an archon, because they don't know that I have a condition, that I
Mm-hmm.
am just half blind,
Mm-hmm.
and they make all these crazy things about me. And I'm like, I don't even know how one of them is supposed to act like.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
but I don't believe they are related to the Greys. No,
Okay. I
the
just wanted to
Greys
clear that
are
up.
very, very different.
Mm-hmm.
The Greys can be cloned. There are clones, but they are pretty much even organic life forms. Even if they are artificial intelligence, they are still, some of them, organic in nature. So I guess what I kind of want to say about this is that it doesn't matter if some Greys are clones, they are still some form of organic living being if they are clones. And it's very different from the archons. The archons are more like an infestation, so to speak. It doesn't have to do with an intelligent life form, so to speak.
This is very interesting because whenever I touch on this topic, I realize that I don't really have any actual experiences with them either, which is very interesting. I've just had a lot of people that have asked me about this and they wanted information. See, when I would be in the New Age community as well, there were a lot of people that were like, "There's archons around you. I have archons around me," but I've never known actually what that truly entailed. Okay, now I do know about parasitic entities and off-world parasites, because there's all kinds of different off-world burrower parasites that burrow into your aura, that can burrow into your neck, that can burrow into your etheric double, things like that. Okay, and there's one specific one that I had learned about called the Goganatsky. Okay, and they were these type of parasites that burrow into people's etheric double, and they lay their larvae, they lay their eggs, and they basically just feed on that person. And that's really the only experience that I have with anything that can be remotely close to resembling an archon. But other than that, I can't say that I have any experiences with them. Now, I will say I have had parasites that have been killed from, I have had parasites that have been killed from specific demons that I have, kind of worked with and walked with into different realms. Because there was a time where I had walked into a specific realm with Bereath. And these beings, to me, what I would define an archon as, because this is what I've seen, archons are like these weird octopus looking things that have one eye in the middle, and it had like a big huge eye. And what they can do is they literally can just siphon the energy from you. They can siphon luck from you. They can siphon different kinds of things. There are also people who can control those energies too, that can summon those things forward and control them. But when I saw that the thing was floating above me, literally I just saw Bereath with his lance just stab him in the eye, and then all this blood just rained down, and he wiped it on me. And it was like an empowerment. It was very interesting when he did that. Another time was yesterday that I had experienced something similar to that, because Sobek was removing a parasite from my aura, and that's when I was kind of being empowered by this energy, and I felt all of this electric energy around me. And that was very interesting. But those are really the only times that I've had experiences like that. Other than that, I have not had anything, resembling close to being an archon, if that's the case. So for those people who are asking that question, there's my experience, and there's also another perspective from Zion. And let me see. So I did have another question. I'm just trying to remember what that was. Okay. What is your connection to Anubis, and when did you know you had a connection to him?
All right. So I had my spiritual starseed awakening in 2010. I also started to like get into all the documentaries I could possibly find, Zeitgeist and all that jazz.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to like learn about Egypt briefly. And I started to like go into these starseed forums and getting all sorts of readings. I was such a hoarder of tarot readings. I would ask literally everybody who was offering free readings. I was such a leech. I have to admit it. And I started to develop this whole thing of like meditating and trying to connect with myself. And one day I went in person to a local psychic, and she told me, you need to get your own deck of cards. And that's when I started to get interested in the tarot. So my first tarot was the Egyptian tarot. And I forgot the author, but I think her name was Sylvana or something. It's a
Mm-hmm.
really old deck. But eventually, that summer, I got a reading by a man from India who was an astrologer. And he told me that I had past lives in ancient Egypt as a high priestess, and to look into that place and to the history of that place. So that's how I started to research Egypt. And the first person or
Mm-hmm.
god I came across was Mr. Anubis. And the funny part about it was that as soon as I saw him, I felt it was a hit on the chest. I knew him. I was familiar with his energy and who he was. I had this immediate connection to him, and it was overwhelming actually, because that was my first time that I could feel his energy or any other being's energy in person while I was awake. So I was very surprised with all these new things that I was experiencing, and so I wanted to contact him. So at the time, I was already practicing astral projection, getting into trouble by going to military bases and having
Same.
sleep paralysis, of course, and
Same.
not using psychic protection. I did not use psychic protection for the first 2 years, which could have helped me to avoid a lot of mess. Um, so I was like, I'll try to astral travel to Anubis wherever he is. But on the first try, I am in this tunnel and there's a light at the end of it. So I approach it and he is there. And he tells me to go back because it's not my time. And I was very sassy with him. I told him, I'm not moving from this place. I'm going to stay here. So my answer is no. And so he there was this huge gust of wind that started to like pull me backwards. So I fell back and I started to like roll back to the darkest part of the tunnel
Hmm.
until I slammed back into my physical body. And I woke up with paralysis and I was angry and I was like, why am I being cock blocked by him? Why does he not want to talk with me? And it was because it was not my time, like he said. But eventually,
So so basically, what happened was you gave yourself a near-death experience. Is that what that was? If he's telling you it's not your time, then was that a near-death experience?
I don't know because that's something I've always questioned because I was like, how could I die in my own bed and just come back to life out of nowhere? That is something I will never really have the answer to if something like that happened or not. Perhaps it was simply a very intense out of body experience. I
Mm-hmm.
really don't know. But it
Mm-hmm.
was interesting because I wasn't really thinking like about dying in that time or anything. Um, so it was very interesting that he refused to like talk with me at that time. So I figured, well, maybe I was trying to step into another realm and he was busy, so he wanted me to like go back onto another time. So that's what I figured and I left it at that. But I continued to try to astral project and I started to eventually travel to the pyramids and I would see these underground temples underneath the pyramids and the hallways lit up with candles on the walls. And so, am I getting somewhere with this?
Oh yeah, you are. It's very similar to some things that I've experienced as well. But continue.
And eventually, I came across him one time underground in one of the pyramids, and he was waiting for me in one of the rooms. But there was this bed, so to speak, made of it seemed to be made of stone. But since everything had like this golden hue to it, it seemed like to be made of sand. And he was waiting for me, but I realized that I was wearing lingerie. And I don't remember that part because I woke up, which I was very upset about because I really wanted to talk to him. So the first couple of times that I would interact with him, usually there would be no interaction. We would see each other, but that was it. And then eventually the encounters started to become more sexual in nature. And I was like, am I imagining all of this or is this really happening? But the thing that helped me realize that it was really happening was that I was lucid. I was aware that I was not in my home, in my bed. I was elsewhere with him, and I was conscious that I was with him. So when I realized that I was conscious, I would make him questions like, what do you do? Like me with my innocent questions. And he would answer sometimes. But when he would, it would be very short words. And I realized immediately, oh, he's not a talker. But if he opens his mouth, he doesn't really need to say much to say everything. And that has always been the case with him. He doesn't need to say a lot. Just a couple words is more than enough to say the whole thing. So whenever I see him, I really pay attention to him because I know that whatever he has to say must be really important
Hmm.
because he's usually quiet most of the time.
Hmm. So I want to ask, what is his energy like, from your perspective and your experience? Did he have any kind of chaotic energy? Does he have
No.
aggression? Hmm.
No. And that is interesting because a lot of people perceive him differently. But in my case, he's quiet,
Hmm.
very observant. He is also, he has this intimidating energy, but at the same time, it's very comforting in nature.
Hmm.
So it's like a mix between, oh, I am intimidated, but I feel safe with him. And I
Hmm.
guess that's why, due
Hmm.
to his immense power, which can come across as intimidating.
Hmm. Okay. I feel like that makes sense. For myself, my experience with him, literally every time that I've had an experience with him, Anubis has been like, chop, 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 chop. You need to learn this. You need to understand this. Identify this stone. Identify this door. Identify this world. No, come on. You know this. You know this. You need to understand. You need to do this. There have been people who have told me that my encounters that I've talked about on my channel, that they feel that I was connected to Set. Anubis would not allow me ever to connect to Set. So I have not had a real experience with Set at all, like whatsoever. I don't exactly know, I don't exactly know where they get that from, because for myself, Anubis has always been someone that has been very much so straight to the point. He would
Yeah.
not talk a lot. I can definitely agree with you on that. When he talks to me, he's straight to the point. He's like demanding that I identify these things, demanding that I do not dress a certain way, demanding that I don't do certain things to my face, demanding that I don't get specific types of piercing, things like that. When it comes down to Anubis, when he considers you family, that's how he is. This is how he was with me. He's told me specific things that I should never do, that he would disown me if I did. Like that's how he is towards me.
He
He's
is. He is territorial.
he's like a big brother. You know, he to me he's like a big brother, and he allows me to really go in depth, to go further into things when it comes down to questioning myself. I had stopped working with him for a while, but I really am wanting to get back into contact with him, especially because of the fact that you're so close to him and you continuously deliver me messages that he has when it comes down to connecting with me. So I feel like I'm going to definitely start working with him and listening to him a lot more, because it seems like he's been around recently. Like probably 5 minutes ago, he was right here, and I was looking to the side because he's just standing there breathing, but he didn't say anything. So that happens sometimes. He definitely is extremely quiet. Sometimes he'll even like come forward and just jokingly blow some kind of substance in my face just to see how I'm going to react to it, to see how I'm going to be when it comes down to um, dealing with those different kinds of energies that he experiments with. He does that to me sometimes, and he's done that in the past several times.
And you know what? You know that you were looking to your left side, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which would be my right side. Well, guess who's at my right side, which is your left side.
That's funny.
So
That's
it's
pretty
funny
funny.
how you perceive him in the same location of where I have him right next to me.
I can
Very
picture
interesting.
standing the same way that he's standing right there too. And I always see him with that scepter, with a scepter. He's always
Yeah.
standing there with a scepter that has this big purple crystal on top of it. He always has that. It's probably an amethyst, but I'm not exactly sure, because the first crystal that he ever had me identify, the first and the only one actually, was amethyst. And it was inside of this pyramid when he was taking me in to open up myself to have my Merkaba aligned, so I could utilize it to travel interdimensionally to go to Sirius, because I went to Sirius to be introduced and meet my family, and it was insane. It was insane. There's no way of really being able to explain that, and there's no way of really being able to explain how I felt. The only way that I can put that into words is just saying it just felt like love that you can never feel from anyone ever on this earth, from friends, from family members, from a father or mother, even if you have a grandmother that really loves you. If you even put everyone in the world that loves you all together, you could never equate that to what you would feel when you go to your home, when you go to your place of origin. There's nothing like unconditional love.
And I am not surprised if Anubis is linked with amethyst because the color purple is associated with transmutation.
That
So
makes
if
sense.
he is the guardian of the dead and leads them into the afterlife, to me that represents, purifying them, preparing them before moving on to the other side.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's sometimes he'll come forward and he'll bring like an entire room. He'll come with a room, and I'll just be sitting here and I'm looking, and there's a room with him. Just like the first time that I experienced him, I did an integration of him to kind of become possessed by him, to walk the path with him, you know. And during this possession, he literally had changed a lot of my energy. He had changed a lot of my energy. And then after that, I ended up in this chamber room that was like leaking water, which was very interesting. So there were all of these hieroglyphs that were on the walls. And in this temple, there were just all of these droppings of water that were coming down from the ceiling. But all the while these droppings were coming down, it's literally like the place wasn't flooding though. It was just really just flowing smoothly all down the line. I had no shoes on, and I'm looking at Anubis. This is the first time that I ever seen him. He had these big bracelets on with gold, a big gold necklace. He had huge ears, very, very sharp teeth, a really long kind of snout, and really muscular arms with gold bands around him as well. No piercings on his face. He had painting like gold paint on his eyes, and he had blood like right here. There was like blood or some kind of drawing right here. And he even had those gold anklets, which made me want some. It really made me want some of those when I saw that. And he basically was just telling me like, welcome to like a safe zone. Welcome to my safe zone. If I ever wanted to talk to him, I could go there, because if that's a memory, then I can always go back to it just by visualizing it. And you know, I never really put much thought into that. After that, I had an awakening of Kundalini, and I ended up really becoming a lot closer to him, because I didn't understand what was going on. I started feeling these etheric wings, if that makes sense. I started to feel wings, and that's when I started to piece it together that I had ties to Draconians, even more so. Even though I had those experiences where I was activated and things like that, it made me realize truly what was going on after I had that awakening. I got this book called the Magdalene Manuscript, and Anubis came forward as soon as I got that book. So as soon as I touched that book and I got it mailed to me, delivered to my home, even when it was in the package, he was walking around in my house. And he was just like, this book is going to help you with understanding how to utilize your consciousness to come from your chalice. That's what he calls it. Your midbrain, he calls it the chalice. He taught me about harnessing my sexual energy and pulling it up to not orgasm, but to just release it back into my brain, so as to release a lot of energy towards my goal of manifesting a specific desire. Well, I used to utilize this for people to manifest sexual partners, or to manifest a specific person to come into their life as a lover, or things of that sort. So I became really, really well versed in sex magic. And of course, thanks to Anubis, he helped me understand how exactly that stuff worked. It was pretty difficult to fathom exactly what he was trying to tell me, but after some time of practicing with it, I came to understand that's what he was trying to teach me.
And it's interesting you bring that up, because I've always felt awkward about bringing up that sexual part between Anubis and I, because many devotees that I used to know back in the day did not really follow the same path that I did.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, it is apparently forbidden to have a sexual relationship with a god, so to speak. So I always felt like the odd one out of the group, even if we were all pagans and stuff. And so that is something I always kept to myself. But Anubis, let me tell you something from a female perspective, he is very, very alpha. Very alpha, very protective and territorial. I'm sure you've experienced that territorial part of him as well. In my case, it's mostly about being territorial in the sense of other beings around me. So he really doesn't like Set around me either.
Me either.
He actually, like, one time, and I think I told you about this. I had a dream one time, or out of body experience, in the pyramids again. I wanted to visit the temple of Anubis, because that's the thing. I see myself always in this place. It's sometimes underground, but it's a temple that is near the pyramids, and it's Anubis's temple. But I don't think such structure exists in this reality. And Seth got on the way, and I thought it was Anubis, but he was actually trying to mask himself as Anubis. And he was inviting me into the temple of Anubis to have a talk. And so I knew where this was going, but in my head, I thought it was Anubis until he came around super, super pissed off. I've never seen Anubis so pissed off. And that was actually the last time I saw him that angry. And he just got on the way to defend me from Set. And they had a huge argument. And I know that everything eventually turned into dust because Seth started to like make this whole tornado made out of dust. And I don't remember exactly what else happened, but all I know is that eventually everything cleared up. He disappeared, and then I was just alone with Anubis.
Hmm.
But it was very, very intense. I've never seen him like that. So I feel weirded out when other people tell me that they experience Anubis being angry most of the time. And my answer to that would be, well, what are you doing or not doing that's pissing him off? Because he doesn't get pissed off unless there is something big happening.
Hmm. Hmm. No, I agree to that because I was very stubborn. I was very curious. I wanted to go, like you said, when I learned to astral travel, I wanted to fucking go everywhere. I want to see forbidden rituals. I want to go see Draconians. I want to see what they're doing. I want to know how they get their energy. I want to know where you come from. I want to know the origins of this. I want to know the origins of that. And when you're traveling all of these different places, you're going to get a lot of beings that are interested in you because you're going there so often. You're going to all of these places so often, so quickly, because those are the ones that learn so fast, or the ones that are curious. Because you learn your lessons, you get attacked, you have things that attach themselves to you, but ultimately at the end of the day, you're learning, you are evolving because of those experiences. And he would literally tell me, you need to watch out who you're talking to. You need to watch out who you're connecting to. You have connections that are from here. You have portals open, and these beings are watching you, and they're doing this and this and this. They're running structural tests on you to test your DNA to determine whether or not they're going to abduct you and take pieces of your DNA to make clones. Like they were taught, he would tell me about a lot of things and warn me about a lot of shit. And I didn't listen to him when it came down to certain things because I was so young, But now I really respect him because even when I would fuck up, even when I would do stupid shit as a kid, he still would come and he would clear my space. He still would come and he would connect me back to his energy, connect me back to his consciousness to allow me to understand exactly what I did wrong and what I need to do better the next time. Because he was always that teacher that would be super harsh to me when he was pissed off, but he would not leave me hanging. He would not leave me hanging whatsoever.
In my experience, Anubis is more like the quiet type in the sense of like he just gives me that stare. He
Mm-hmm.
gives me that look, and I'm like, oh shit. Like, I know I fucked up and I want to fix it. And
Mm-hmm.
then, he starts like giving me either a lecture or doesn't even tell me anything at all. He just turns his back on me, walks away, and I wake up, because usually when he turns his back on me, it's because he knows that I will figure it out on my own
Mm-hmm.
and he doesn't need to get involved any further.
Mm-hmm.
So some people may take this as rude from his part, but I don't really take it personally
Mm-hmm.
because he's not the only one who does that to me. And like you mentioned, he does tell you like who is who, where you're getting yourself into. He is always the one who warns me about certain friendships and connections. Like, you have to watch out this person. And then I would see the person materialize in the dream state. And I would ask him why. Sometimes he would get into details, sometimes not.
Mm-hmm.
But he would always warn me about people. And There's been times I have not listened to him because I would be blinded by the person. And I was like,
Hmm.
no, Anubis, yeah, let's just give the person a break. And he would grin at me and just shake his head and like, well, we'll see about that. And not even a week it would take until the person would fuck up.
Hmm.
And then I would be crying my eyes out. Oh my gosh, I knew you were right. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. But he's used to it.
Hmm.
So he doesn't really care too much because sometimes we have to learn our own things our own way.
Hmm.
Because you can help a person, but if the person doesn't want to help themselves, there really isn't too much that you can do.
Hmm. For sure.
Especially him, since he doesn't really like to force himself into somebody. He's very respectful when it comes to like personal space and free
Hmm.
will and things like that. So he doesn't really intervene unless, of course, it's something really dangerous.
Hmm. I can definitely agree with you on that for sure. Um, he used to warn me a lot too because there were a lot of people in my past. A lot of people have fucked me over. Now he had shown me, look, these people are connected to this race of extraterrestrials. They do not have good intentions. When they're connected to them, these people are practicing this. They're involved in this kind of magic. You need to watch out because these girls are involved with this and this, and these girls are not from this world. So be careful with that. And then he'd tell me about certain people who were tied into Judeo Christian belief systems, which a lot of them in the end, in the end of my New Age journey, burned the fuck out of me because they just left me and fucking hung me out to dry. Definitely the last one that Anubis warned me about, I didn't listen to him. And I know now to listen to what he says because he was like, you need to be careful with the secrets that you're revealing to these non-initiates. That's what he said. You need to be careful with the secrets that you're revealing to these non-initiates and these people that are not a part of the empire. So you need to understand that this person you might be in a relationship with might not have your best interest. Not only that, but they might turn this stuff that you're talking about against you to make their God seem like it's superior over you and make you submit to their will, even down to the point where this could cause your mental destruction. This could cause mental disruption, but not only that, it can cause poverty in your life. And not only will do that, but there will be attempts on your life as well. And that everything that he said in that order had started to happen, leading up to the point where I literally was dumped off in Kissimmee, Florida, on the side of the fucking road and left to fend for my fucking self because a Judeo Christian belief system literally was ingrained inside of this person's fucking head that made them believe that I was fucking evil and I was an incarnate devil. So they left me there. And there were a lot of other things that led up to that due to my training from my guides, I was able to remain calm. But after the fact that all of that shit happened, I realized that I was over this person. It took me 3 days, and I was able to finally get back to myself, have control over, my mindset again, even though I had had a big curse put on me and my bloodline poisoned from beings that were from off world. Just as Anubis said, I'm very grateful for what he has told me about and the warnings that he would give to me. I heed them every time he comes forward now. I do not take those for granted because that stuff unraveled and played out exactly in the order that he said they would, exactly in the way that he said they would, and directly down to the pinpointed origins of what he said. And I even had a confirmation from friends that are directly connected to Nubis as well that gave me real insights into what had happened to me that led up to this huge curse that was placed upon me that started to really fuck with a lot of stuff that I was doing for quite some time.
Wow. And not only that, but sometimes Anubis can give physical signs, not just through the dream state, astral projection, but he can also be very vocal when it comes to showing himself in some way. Through, through even the wildest fucking ways. Like one time I was just minding my business here. I know I asked him for a sign, but I forgot about it. And then my mother calls me from the other room, like there is something on television in a telenovela that she was watching. And when I come to the living room, there is this scene at the travel agency place, and the travel agency is called Anubis. And I look at my mom and I'm like, what does Anubis have to do with a Mexican telenovela and a travel agency in this program?
Hmm.
And we were both so bewildered. And I I didn't poop my pants, but I really freaked out badly
Hmm.
because when he wants to be loud and clear, he can be.
Hmm.
And that's why I don't really test him because I know he's going to give me quite a surprise.
Hmm. For sure.
Like one other example with him was just the other day. I was giving myself a reading, which I don't do because I cannot read myself.
Hmm.
And I was asking Anubis if a certain person was going to return into my life because he just keeps showing up. Anubis.
Hmm.
It's like, Anubis, you're showing up. Why is this? And the reading would say that there's this person that's going to come back.
Hmm.
So my skeptical ass tells Anubis, well, if this is true, if this is not made up by my own mind, I want you to give me a sign. But I want you to be so clear, so evident, so obvious that it is shocking for me, which I should not have said that in the first place. Next thing I know, not even 30 minutes later, I am on Facebook. I do a random quiz to waste my time because quarantine is freaking killing me. And in this quiz, the random god that showed up to me was Anubis.
I saw that too. And I
Oh
tried
my
it,
god.
right? I tried that quiz too. And literally, there was no way that Anubis was going to just randomly show up like that. Honestly, because I was like, you know what? He showed up to her. Maybe I can find Anubis on there. I literally did that thing like 25 times. And the only ones that I got was Zeus and Thor, and they continuously kept coming up. And then Loki popped up, and that's it. That was it.
I
Nothing
know,
else.
I was like on the first try and I was
Hmm.
freaking out. And I am very easily impressionable, so I started freaking out. My heart started racing. I started to run around my room to try to calm down, but I ended up making it worse. And it's like, oh my god, I can't believe it. Holy fucking shit. And I was like, I said shocking, but not to the point of killing me because I wasn't expecting that. So I guess it's a surprise. So I should
Hmm.
be careful with how I word things
Hmm.
because they do take it literally.
They do. They really do. I remember when back when I was in Florida, and it was the first day that I had got left. There was a person who I had came across, and Anubis stepped into him and literally had dialogue with this person and myself between us, where he was speaking Lemoira. Like he was speaking Lemoira with this guy. So we're going back and forth, and it's confirmed that this guy was hosting it, like that Anubis had possessed this man temporarily to allow me to have a place to stay. Because there was no way that this guy could know this language. There was no way. People who don't practice, people who are not connected in that way, do not easily have access to be able to talk, especially with me, if they don't have a history or that ability unlocked within them, unless there's someone that is just on drugs and mind boggled, not really paying attention, because those are people who are easy to possess. And after that, I was able to get that help from him, where I had a place to stay. I had the ability to kind of rethink everything that was going on with me and make a decision on whether or not I wanted to get the fuck out of there and get my shit together, to never make that decision that I had made and not make that mistake and falling for and connecting to dumbasses like the one that I had originally connected with in the first place, the dumbass that I went there with in the first place, like a fucking idiot. Even though I knew for a fact that I was 19 years old and I was way too fucking young to be going around anywhere with this person, I still went because I felt like there was a reason for me to be going. I felt like I needed to experience something. This person had a lot more experience under their belt, and I definitely did not, especially when it came to relationships. So that went downhill very quickly, especially when it came down to stability and finances. So it went to shit.
Wow. That's why we have to be very discerning.
Mm-hmm.
I know that when you're young, I kind of get it, like you want to explore, you want to live life, you want to be independent and become an adult. You've been dreaming about it all your life, so now you have the chance. It happens pretty much to everybody. The most important part here is that you don't beat yourself up about it because that's unfair to yourself.
Mm-hmm. Of course. I mean, I forgive myself. I just feel like, wow, that was fucking crazy. For those of you who are young, who might be 19, who might be even 21, don't go across the country with just anybody that you don't fucking know, that you have not had personal experience with in fucking person. Okay? These online relationships are not always good unless you are able to meet that person and you can get them to come to you or you can go to them to visit. Okay? Make sure that they have a stable fucking structure of a home. Make sure that they also are financially stable to be able to support you if need be, and make sure that you are financially stable to be able to support your fucking self, okay? Or support them if that's the case and it comes down to that. But make sure that you look out for yourself in the beginning and do not just go on a random fucking journey like how I do, because I tend to just jump into shit. And sometimes things can be very overwhelming, but at the same time, they can be rewarding. So be fucking careful, okay? Now, like we said in the beginning, yes, follow your intuition. But your intuition can be very fucking wrong, especially if there's a spirit that's giving you big fucking warnings about somebody that is pinpointing direct red flags that you are completely avoiding because you're still head over heels for whatever fucking reason. Okay? Also, if you're somebody that is trying to fucking escape, because this had a lot to do with what happened to me as well. If you're somebody who's in a bad situation where you're not getting along with your parents, where you don't get along with your family, a relationship with someone that is completely older than you, that has quite a few years, almost double yours, is not a good idea. Okay, do not go forward with doing that if you're just trying to escape. It will go bad very quickly. Your skeletons will come out of the closet and everything will be revealed about that person, but also be revealed about you. And this will definitely test your strength and your ability to survive on your own.
That's a great advice that everyone should listen to because, it's all fun and games until you end up on the street, and sometimes we tend to trust too much and too quickly because we are in love and we don't really have a plan B if things were to go wrong because many people don't want to think about things going wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I always do, and I get called a pessimistic person, but I don't
Me too.
care. It's about having more options than just going head on to just one way. If it doesn't turn out how you wanted it to, well, what else can you do about it? Absolutely nothing because you didn't plan for it. So
Yep.
it's not about being pessimistic, but being realistic and
Yes,
having
yes,
your
it
feet
is.
on the ground.
Yes, it is. And if you see red flags or you're getting red flags from your spirits, if you ever get any fucking red flags, especially with Anubis, and you hear anything about any person or any spirit that you're working with, and Anubis tells you don't fuck with them, do not fuck with them. Okay? Because he's telling you that for a reason. He knows something that you don't. So just heed his warning and pay close attention if you're going to continue pursuing that individual or that adventure that you're trying to embark on. But just make sure that you know for a fact that you have exhausted all of your options before you go forward with doing that. Because I can guarantee you, you will have a fucked up time if you do not pay attention. That's all I have to
Exactly.
say.
Yeah, me too. Listen to Anubis because he always has your best interest in mind, and he will show you. If you do not listen to him, he will show you very quickly how wrong you are.
Mm-hmm.
Because
That's
that's
very
how it
true.
happened to me with someone that I was interested in, but he was a huge ass narcissistic person. And I was not aware of the psychological, emotional manipulations
Mm-hmm.
that I was involved with this person. And he had warned me, but and my star family as well, my Draconian star family. And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
there's a guy we don't like. You will know soon why. So watch out. And I was like, oh, no, I'm not going to listen to you guys. You guys don't want me to be in love with a human being on this planet. I kind of get it, but I was actually becoming discriminating towards them and not paying attention to what they were trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, you're going to be with a person, but it's not going to be him. And you will know why. So just keep your eyes peeled on this one. But I
Mm-hmm.
didn't. And so they backed off for 1 full year because shit went wrong 1 month after they gave me the warning.
Whoa. Damn.
So a month later, everything went to shit, but I stayed there for 9 months trying to fix things, to make him change, to make him like me, to make him love me. I was trying to shapeshift myself into his ideal person, but I was too old for him at 23. So even though he was like 7 years older than me, so he, was a very interesting person for obsessing over minors. But the programming was so deep that I was not aware of the kind of disgusting piece of shit that he was on the
Gross.
first place. And it took me 9 months to finally stand up to him and tell him to fuck off once and for all. And something I regret is not listening to my Draconian star family. Literally 1 month before everything went to shit, even Anubis was involved. They don't mix together, the Dracos with him, especially my Draconian counterpart with him. They don't really connect. But to have both at the same time, I could tell that something was wrong. But deep inside, I was like, people can change. People can be different. People can learn. You never know. Me trying to save everybody and rescue everybody. I was actually the one who needed saving. And it took me 9 months to realize that. So don't be like me and waste 9 months after you've been given a warning loud and clear.
Oh, damn. Damn. I hear you on that. That's intense. That is intense. What was I gonna ask? I was gonna ask about hmm. I don't remember. I'll come back to that question because I don't remember. Um, How do you feel? Okay, what was your most odd encounter? Like, what was the weirdest race of ETs that you've encountered to date?
Actually, this is going to sound pretty basic, but there were a group of Zetas that, they had like the large heads and eyes,
Mm-hmm.
but their skin was brown. It looks literally like a paper bag skin. I don't know how to explain this, but the texture of the skin was very squishy. It felt kind of like dipping your fingers into like silly putty or kind of like slime,
Mm-hmm.
except that their skin color was like the brown paper bag. And their eyes were black and large like usual, but that was like in 2009 after I started to explore the ET life and things like that after the abduction. I started to have these weird dreams with these beings. And also other Zetas who were the same thing, large eyes, big heads, but their skin was paper white. And these ones were more of a tribe because they had their bows and arrows. And I had a dream where I was in their home planet, lost on the forest, and they were rescuing me out of there because there were some creatures that reminded me of Amit. You know that Amit is like crocodile, part lioness or something, but this creature was kind of like a polar bear with a lion mane. It was a very strange creature. It was like three different races in one. So these white grays were trying to like rescue me from being eaten by this creature that was in a lake. So they were like harming the creature with the arrows so that the creature would back off from me. And as soon as they get me out of the lake, they tell me, you're not even supposed to be in this planet in the first place because our atmosphere is not fit for a human to breathe out of. It
What?
seems that they probably didn't have oxygen or something, or they had another type of way of breathing. I don't know, some kind of gas in the air or something
Hmm.
because whatever it was, they were concerned that it was toxic in nature for me to breathe in. So there must have been definitely something in the air that was toxic for humans. And so they put me into this capsule that was hiding inside a tree.
Hmm.
And then I was teleported back into my physical body. And that's when I
Wow.
woke up with sleep paralysis.
Wow, that's crazy.
That's a really, really old experience from like 11 years ago.
Hmm. Hmm. That's pretty interesting.
There
It's
is a
crazy.
lot of weird shit out there, especially
There.
if you don't use protection. You're going to
Mhm.
find a lot of weird, creepy stuff.
That's for sure. That's for sure. We're at an hour and 30 minutes. We'll definitely wrap it up. Um, when it comes down to finding you, where can we find you on social media? Also, what kind of services do you offer aside from 3D art?
Well, I also offer web designing, graphic designing, web developing. I also do video editing. I also do tarot readings. So if any of you guys are interested, the rates are $30 for about 15 minutes of recorded video reading or $70 for a 30-minute filmed reading. Of course, I always say 15 and 30 minutes, but I usually take about an hour or two to reading the cards because I do give a lot of information, which a lot of people don't appreciate, but that's okay. I mean, I
Hmm.
can't hold back when my guides are telling me, oh, you need to say this and that, you know.
Hmm.
That's just an estimate. Um, so if you guys want to have a reading with me, you can find me on zionzeta.com, where you can find me and all of my services, and of course, any social media that might be listed in there. But I am usually on Instagram, which is just Zion Zeta, and you can have a peek in my life and all the weird shit I talk about sometimes in my stories. So you can feel free to give me a follow or follow the Spiritual Alien Podcast on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Just type in the Spiritual Alien Podcast and you will be able to find me there.
Perfect. As always, guys, remain sovereign. It's been a pleasure. It's been fucking awesome. It's awesome every time we get to talk because we get so deep into a lot of different subjects. Um, yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be interested in that service of getting their 3D art done. Do you identify also like their guides, the collective of spirits that is around them when it comes to extraterrestrials?
When the person books a commission, they can either tell me what they want in specific. So if they want to have their spirit guide or higher self and so on to be depicted, they can just let me know in the checkout section. If not, it will be intuitively based, where I will tune into the person's energy. So if the person wants to know, oh, I would like to know if I have a Pleiadian star family or any ET connections and such, I can also do it intuitively, where the person, I will tune into their energy and then bring through some sort of energetic being, usually ET in nature. Sometimes it can be more than one, in
Okay.
which case I do not charge extra for an extra being because
Mhm.
that's just on them, not on the client.
Okay.
So usually people get more than one being, sometimes in one same portrait or separately. And that's pretty much it. If they do have any questions, they can check out the Q&A section in my portfolio, which is zionzeta.com/clairvoyart. And if you guys want to see the portfolio, it's there. The questions are also there. If you do have any further questions, contact me in the contact box in that page, where I will be specifically getting back to you in like 2 to 3 business days to answer any other questions that I didn't cover on the website.
Can you just send me all of your links? I'm
Oh,
a
I
sucker for
will.
links.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course. Of course. I'll send you